Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. We appreciate that you're busy, and we thank you for taking time out of your day to attend our webinar on AP automation. Your speaker today is Daniel Collar with Precise Business Solutions. He is a territory manager with many years' experience in this field. If you've been to Insights in the past few years, you may have met him. He watches over all of North America. Before I turn it over to Daniel, I want to let you all know that we are recording this, and the recording will be available on our website, on YouTube in a couple of days. If you have any questions as we go along, please do put them into the Q&A, and we will address those at the end. Can you advance? Thank you. Thank you. Cre8tive focuses on being that manufacturing partner that will drive technology centered around manufacturing, including what many of you are already running, which is Epicor Kinetic. You may or may not have a need for MES and shop floor, a QMS quality system, IoT, product lifecycle management. These are all available capabilities as we start to look at how does your technology investment get optimized. Cre8tive is here to help optimize all of this technology as we think about what you've already implemented and what you might need to do to make your life a lot better. Can you go to the next slide, Daniel?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you. We work in a phased approach around business process. You see some processes here. Most people have focused on that go live is getting the baseline working, but when you get to an advanced phase where you're now trying to optimize, that's where this comes in. And the topic we're going to talk about today with Daniel and the Precise team is around AP and AP automation, which is a great next step once you're live on your ERP system and you consider how you can optimize and improve your operational efficiency. I'll turn it over to you, Daniel.
Awesome. Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, yeah, we'll start with an agenda. And obviously the main thing that people are looking for is, will there be a demo? Can we actually see it working? Absolutely. So what we're going to do with this session is we'll start with more of almost like a coaching or like a classroom approach to what are the main challenges? How is there a business case? Where's the ROI around this? What are other, what is best practices for processing invoices in 2026, moving into 2027? But most importantly, we'll spend the majority of our time in the environment. We'll jump back and forth between Kinetic and the Precise AP automation module, and we can see that bi-directional communication that's going to be happening. And that's a really big thing to point out in getting started, is that this module is built specifically and only for Epicor Kinetic. So that level of integration and being able to have that bi-directional information, visibility, and control and audit trail in either system, regardless of where you're looking at the information, is really important. So we'll do that demonstration, and then we'll actually end this slide deck with talking about another user called Ropeblock, and then we'll jump into that demonstration. All right. So with that being said, I'll start more of that with that classroom approach. Manual operations, why is that a challenge? What we'll focus on today is essentially that a lot of organizations are taking an invoice from the inbox and they're opening up AP entry in Kinetic, and they're typing in the vendor details and then adding the lines, and then they're going and matching the lines or looking up the PO to the receipt, doing the three-way match. And then, God forbid, if there's approval that needs to happen because it's out of tolerance or because the invoice doesn't have a PO, then now we're sending emails and we're following up with people, hopefully on a regular basis, or there's some process in place there. So it's really easy to see that if we are using kind of the traditional AP entry, methodology, there's going to be a lot of shortcomings versus what we'll show today, which is more of the AP automation standpoint, where we're going to automatically drag a PDF invoice in. It will populate AP entry for us, including the lines. It will look for the match, and if there's approval needed, it will route for approval as well. So a lot of challenges with the streamlining of the process if we're looking to do it manually, or there's a lot of workarounds, especially with communication and or approvals. With that being said, one of the cornerstones of any business case, which is, again, why would we change, right? Epicor has done it this way for since Vantage 8, right? What's the point? And hopefully what we'll be able to demonstrate today is that with automation, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to say that what is our operating cost, however you calculate that per invoice, per PO, again, however you want to manage that, what is the operating cost on the business per invoice? And that's a very common measurable metric that people will use. And then all you do is you extrapolate that, or you multiply that by how many invoices you process per year, right? So if we take 600 times 12 times 15, that will give us a monetized number that we can use as a cornerstone of our business case, which is kind of for a manufacturing organization is kind of that average volume. Now, the more volume, the more opportunity for savings, I would argue. But that's a really good kind of baseline or a benchmark metric that we like to share. All right. With that being said, what is best practices? What are other organizations using and doing in the industry today for processing AP invoices? And also importantly, what you're going to see in today's demonstration. So what we can do is we can now take a file, whether it's a flat file, CSV, PDF is what we're going to be looking at today, and we can drag and drop it into a work list. And what will happen is an AI and an OCR engine will read that data and it will place the fields appropriately. It will extract that data appropriately and put it into essentially AP entry. From there, there's going to be verification, right? Is this an approved supplier? Am I confident that I have the right vendor details, PO details, due date details, terms details, right? And then from there, assuming that we have verification and good quality data that doesn't require manual intervention, which sometimes it will. But once we have it all verified, then the system will also look for if there is a PO, do we have a receipt, right? And then if we do have a receipt and it's out of tolerance, then we might need to do approval. So that's kind of the full life cycle of using the system to automate that process. Automate the capture, automate the verification, automate the matching, and automate the approval routing. So that's all the stuff we're going to see today. And as you can see, if that all is true, then essentially we have the best case scenario, which is a touchless AP invoice with zero manual intervention. Now, if we do need approval, which also is the backbone of this module, then we'll show that use case in the system. All right, AP automation. Again, the main things that we'll focus on is the OCR engine capturing the PDF data and creating it in Epicor. And then secondly, we're going to focus on the approval workflow engine. Now, in addition to that, we're going to see other items that are important to the business, like analytics and reporting and dashboards. And there's a lot here outside of the core topics, but we'll try to touch on all these as we go through here, but focus mainly on OCR and approval routing. So with that being said, if you're not familiar with OCR, essentially what it is capturing the data, and then it is placing it or mapping it to the correct place in Epicor, right? So what we'll essentially do is we'll look at where, from a location perspective, is the invoice number, where is the invoice date, where is the PO number, where are the terms details on this invoice, and the system essentially will capture that and it will put it into AP entry, right? There is the invoice number as an example. So it will capture that information automatically and then populate, in this case, that's header details. But of course, we're going to look at line level details as well. Now, in addition to that, automation is great. Not having to manually key in AP invoices and match receipt lines is great. But in addition to that, it also will do fraud detection, right? So one of the most common fraud attempts when it comes to AP processing is, I'm going to send you an invoice with the correct brand, the correct details. Maybe I've even, know what you order from this company. It might be the correct part numbers. The only thing that's different is the banking details, or is the address, or is something related to the invoice, which an AP clerk might not recognize. So that risk profile and that detection is also baked into that tool. So not only will it capture it, but it will identify you if, hey, these terms don't match your Kinetic default terms that you've set or this supplier, the address or the phone number or the banking details has changed. Are you aware of that? And that is the most common type of AP fraud. But in addition to that, all the other stuff that you would expect, like whether they're approved or not. So that is a really, really nice tool. From an approval standpoint, I always like to introduce this, and we'll actually see this in the demo, but it's good to just slow it down. What this is demonstrating and what's important and what's unique in the Epicor Kinetic world is that this enables multi-dimensional approval routing. And what that means is that you're going to use different criteria to determine who the correct approver is. So essentially what happens is we say, what is your corporate policy for a non-PO invoice? And you would say something like, well, if it's based on a department, it's being an expense to a department, then we expect the departmental manager to approve it. And in that case, that is Jen. Now, each person then will have an approval limit. As we can see, Jen's approval limit is $1,000. If it exceeds $1,000, it will sequentially go up the ladder to the next person. Multidimensional means that in addition to location or department or GL or part class, we're going to use other criteria. And in this case, this invoice will also in parallel route to Roy. And the reason for that is, in our demonstration at least, is the part class associated with this invoice is related to IT. It's a computer, and Roy is our IT manager. So one of the things that we can do, whether it came from a PO or not, is we can identify the part class. Now, if it came from a PO, the part class, as you know, will default. If it didn't come from a PO, then the AP clerk or will have a default part class against the vendor. There's other defaulting and geo controls, as you're aware, might identify that it needs to go to Roy. So that's an example of multidimensional, which again is a huge step forward. It's an out-of-the-box feature, and we have a lot of different criteria that you can leverage in order to get invoices to the correct people internally for communication. All right. Real-time analytics and data. So all of this is done via Epicor's API. The APIs are public, which essentially means if you have Power BI or Grow or any other BI tool, you can plug in. But as you see coming soon, there'll be an add-on feature for people who want to use the module and then just have a report pack built and ready for them to use day one. So two different options: report pack, add-on capability, or use your own BI tool. Because you can, because it's public and it's free. So a couple different options there, but of course, really helpful to the AP team to see what is my aging report, or, in that center, kind of center right one, which approvers have the most invoices waiting for them and what's going on, and things like that. So really good data. Okay. That concludes our slide, although as long as I'm in here, I'm going to kind of skip through this, and we're actually going to look at a use case. So this is a user manufacturing organization who uses both the precise AP automation and Epicor advanced requisitions, I believe, and just a really good use case where it kind of sums up all of those business case items that we talked about, which is, how do we measure success? Well, success is reduction in AP invoice processing. It's about having real visibility into where is the bottleneck, why is this vendor harassing our buyer, why hasn't it been approved, where is it at, how do we get it resolved essentially, and how do we scale without needing to hire additional AP teams, right? Or how do we take our distributed AP team and have a centralized team, right? Which is another very common business case to centralize that activity. So yeah, great use case. This will go out from Cre8tive, and the slide deck will go out. So if you're familiar with this organization, you can have a read. All right, and that will conclude our slide deck. So with that being said, we will jump straight into the demo. All right. So Mary Chris, I'm going to give you just a quick check here. So I just switched screens into my login. I'm assuming you can see that?
Yeah, we see login to ARM.
Excellent. That's awesome. Okay, so with this being said, where we're going to start this session is we're going to put on our AP clerk hats, right? And we're going to imagine that It is Monday morning. We are logging in and we have invoices to process. Now, as you can see, users can have different permissions and different visibilities. So this user can see requisitions, they can see POs that are overdue, they can see POs that are related specifically to them. Hey, you've raised 56 POs. You need to start doing some receiving. So this AP clerk, as you can see, wears a few different hats. Most importantly, on the right here, per company, we're going to have task-based analytics as well. So what this is saying is it's saying, hey, there are 2 AP invoices that are requiring your review or approval. So essentially what that means is that you might have sent it off to the buyer for approval, but they sent it back to you with a question, right? Or they sent it back to you with instructions. So really nice bi-directional task-based analytics there. And then we also have 56 invoices that are sitting in our exception path. So what that means is that the tool picked up, it read the invoice, and it's saying, hey, I need your help, right? We've got marketing brochures or junk, or we've been spammed with, with GMC brochure, whatever it is, right? So that is essentially what happens when you have an invoice that comes in and the tool deems it as problematic. And the most common problematic item is you have a PO that hasn't been received, right? So you can still track it. It's still in the system, which is good, but now it's about communicating to the buyer or whoever needs to receive that PO. So that's an example of that. But before we get into those details, again, it's Monday morning. We have our AP clerk hat on, and we're going to process some invoices. So with that being said, let me pull up my details. And as you can see here, we're going to just go into upload. Now, because this is a demo environment, it's not going to be scanning my email inbox. Of course, it could. It can scan a work list that's on your within your company site, or we can drag and drop. Now, in the sake of today's demo, we're going to do that. We're going to drag and drop. So we're going to say that we're going to do a Cre8tive Amazon invoice. We're going to do a bundle invoice, which is my PO related invoice, which, by the way, I've purposely sabotaged so we can talk about all the nice approval features. And then I'm going to grab this bundle invoice, which have a nice clean match. So we'll see what a touchless invoice looks like. And what I do is I just drag and drop those in there. So 1, 2, 3. And in this case, I upload all. And this is doing exactly what we had talked about in the slide deck. So this is going to do, 3, 4 different things, which is it's going to take whatever's on those PDFs and it's going to enter into AP entry. Number 2, it's going to look for validation of data. We have a PO, or this is a non-PO vendor. If there is a PO, do we have a receipt? If we have a receipt, are we within tolerance from a receiving standpoint? If we do have a match, are we within tolerance from a 3-way perspective? Meaning, is the quantity, the value, and the extended value all correct? And all of that will happen. And now when we go back to draft, if there's any issues, it will start to communicate that with us. Now, as you can see, it says metadata is still being processed. And essentially, we can pick up and talk about these invoices as they come in. Now, if there was an issue, let's go ahead and look at examples of issues. So we'll see pending. And these would be an example of issues, right? And here's our most common issue. If I click on this, it's going to say, hey, we see it's for PO number 5055. There are no receipts. And this gives us an opportunity to talk about another feature. Now, if there's a PO in Epicor, we also know there's a buyer. So one of the other automations that will happen with this tool is that in this exact scenario, the buyer will have gotten an automated email and a system generated message as well, but most people run off emails in this case, that says, hey, there's an invoice that just arrived for us. It's invoice EUG 0625, and you did not receive it yet. And that will be system generated, right? So there is automation even for these scenarios where there's an issue. Okay. Now I talked a little bit there, so we're going to reset this and go back. And there we go. So here is the 3 invoices that we just brought in. So bundle, the good one, bundle, the bad one, and then Amazon, which Amazon in our scenario represents a non-PO invoice. So that's why we've done that. All right. So from a draft perspective, let's just have a look at what happened here. So we can see invoice number brought in and we can see status. Now this is going to be auto approved. So this is going to be our example of a touchless invoice, meaning that it came in, receipts were found, receipts were successful within tolerance. It is approved, it is sitting in Kinetic as an approved invoice ready for posting and payment right now, immediately. For this next one, it's submitted. The reason it's submitted means it's required to be approved because it's a non-PO invoice. And this next one is the one I sabotaged. So it is approval in progress, meaning we've submitted it for approval because one of the lines did not match. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look at that. So I'm going to click on this actual invoice here. And this is going to be the touchless one. So what happened is we have our invoice, and if I hover over on the right side, you'll see, sorry, on the left side, you'll see on the right side, the red box shows me what I'm looking at. So the OCR engine said, hey, this is where I got it from, right? On the right, it's showing you that. If I go invoice date, this is where I got that from. If I go invoice due date, bottom, that's where I got that from. If I scroll down just a little bit, it'll actually do that at each line. This is where I got the quantity. This is where I got the unit price. This is where I got the extended price. And the reason that's so valuable is that when there's issues, and there will be issues, as we know with invoices, it is very nice for the AP clerk to say, where the heck did you get that from, right? And this allows us to jump around the screen and be able to see exactly where perhaps it's confused or where there's a mismatch in tolerance. Now, what happened here is, again, this is going to be our successful example, and I can scroll in and do all kinds of stuff, of course, on the right. But most importantly, I'm going to just minimize this for a second. Most importantly, if I look at my lines, again, it brought in the quantity from the invoice, 23 and then 22 unit cost. It brought in the original receipt quantity and unit cost and the PO quantity and unit cost. I did that for every single line. And again, what's nice about that is the reason it was touchless and it's a receipt line is because it was all within tolerance and successful. So now this invoice is sitting in Kinetic as approved. Now, if I go to the next one, and we're going to go with this same vendor, but this is going to be an invoice that we've sabotaged. Let me reset that. There we go. And approval in progress. I believe this is the right one. Yep, that's today's date, invoice number. There we go. All right. So exact same invoice, exact same parts, exact same lines, but I'm going to scroll down here. And what do we see? Oh, sorry, I zoomed in a little too much. We'll zoom in just a bit. We see that, hey, line number 1 is requiring approval. So the approvals are Rachel and the approvals are Adam. Now, if I scroll down these other lines, no approval is required. So that is another unique thing with this module that I don't believe is matched outside of this specific module, which is line level approvals, right? So what this is saying is it's saying your invoice needs approval, but not only does it need approval, but it's showing you where the issue is. So I'm going to go ahead and take a zoom in so we can all see this. Zoom in. Oh, come on, scroll down for me. There's too many bars here. There we go. What this is saying is it's saying, hey, your invoice has a unit cost of 22. Your original receipt, your original PO was supposed to be a unit cost of 12. Therefore, we have an issue. Now, if I look at the approval routing, and by the way, if you're multitasking right now, if I could just grab your eyes, because this is a really, really nice feature, out of the box feature. What this is saying is this line needs to be approved because it's out of tolerance. Who are my approvers? Now, this is great. So number 1, you'll notice that the approval criteria I've set up is I've said, who is the buyer of this PO? That person needs to approve and or correct the PO and or tell us or go back to the vendor and tell them that they're not happy, right? So in this case, what it's saying is the criteria is saying, hey, if your buyer is either from ARM, if it's Brian Howard or it's Howard Lowe, then Adam needs to approve this or be the person to correct the PO or go back to the vendor, right? Now, equally common is you could say that if the buyer is Brian Howard, then Brian Howard needs to be the approver. And that is very common. Of course, you can do that. But this is just one extra level because maybe you do have a head buyer, you have someone who deals with the vendors. So that is that layering of complexity. But if it is a one-to-one relationship, if it's Brian's PO, Brian's the approver, of course, absolutely you can do that. I love that. And that happened, again, automatically. So in Brian's inbox right now, or sorry, Adam's inbox, he's got an email. On his dashboard, he has a notification. Now, Rachel is also an approver. Why is she the approver? Well, we can see here that if the GL account is, masked, whatever we've assigned to her, then based on that GL, she is nominated as the approver. So that's another feature out of the box. You can use any individual digit from any segment or any full segments, however you want to do it, and you can assign people to that what if statement. What if the natural account starts with a 1-2 or it's a 1-2-0-0, right? Whatever it is, then Rachel is that approver. Now, if it starts with a 1-5, then it's going to go to John Doe. And if it starts with a 1-6, it's going to go to Jane Doe. So a lot of really nice configuration. If you can essentially create a what if statement about it, you can most likely coordinate that in your approval routing. All right, so there is our approval. Now, what we'll do is we're gonna go ahead and approve this because I want you to see what it would feel like as an executive to approve. Before we do that, let's take a peek in Kinetic. I might have been still for too long, so I'm hoping this will just pull up. It did. Okay. Now this is a different invoice, just so I didn't have to search and click and whatever. But Bunzel, right? And as soon as I dragged and dropped it, as soon as it identified that there's an issue, it's in Kinetic. The attachment that you drag and drop is in Kinetic. And in this case, it posted to, or did not post, sorry, it's in an unapproved group. So because we're waiting for approval, it's still in Kinetic. We can see it. We can pull up AP Tracker like we just did. But as you can see, the group is called ARM Unapproved. Now, what will happen is we go through and we approve it, it will automatically move to a group either labeled by the day or just called approved group, right? However you want to do it. And most people do it per day. So there's a dynamic group that's get created per day for approved invoices. And to finish out that process, it's exactly like you do it today. You post that invoice and you do your payments, right? So really nice bi-directional automation. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, what happens if we have someone in our organization, they only want to prefer to update things or make changes in Kinetic? No problem. That will go back to ARM or sorry, the precise AP automation module and update it there as well. So it is truly bi-directional, which is good. But yeah, invoice here, invoice lines here, and attachment auto created all from the initiation of the AP tool. All right, so let's go back to this invoice because again, we're waiting on approval. So what we're going to do is we're going to log in as Adam. There we go. Oh, Adam. There we are. Close. And as you can see here, we got a lot of demo data here. So we have 44 invoices requiring your approval. Adam's going to go ahead and open that up. And now chronologically, it's just going to come in based on today's date. So I can see it there. And here is that invoice. So he's going to open that up, being a responsible approver. And now he can see it. He can download this. He can print this. He can come over here and he can see where the issue is, exactly like we see. We see that there's an issue because the invoice has $22 and our PO is for $12 as a unit price. Now, in this case, if he wants to view what's related, he can see if there's any notes. In this case, there is a note. We will need to confirm the price on AN32. It was discounted previously. So there you go. So when the buyer or when we did this receipt, they put in a note and they said, hey, we might foresee that there's going to be an issue with this pricing, right? We're trying to take advantage of last month's pricing, perhaps. So in that case, I can see the POs. I can open the POs. I can open the receipts. I can see the receipt notes. Really nice one-click access. In this case, we're going to suck it up. We're going to say, you know what? we missed the strategic pricing from June. We're going to go ahead and approve this. All right. Now, when I go and look at that same workflow, we get that really nice visual indicator, just like in our slide deck. So I can see from an audit perspective, I can see that Adam has approved this. I can see the time and the date that he approved it. And I can see why he approved it, right? It's based on our corporate policy. He was essentially the head buyer for these buyers who created the PO. Now, Rachel, same thing. We're going to go in as Rachel and get this thing approved. Log off. Rachel, there we are. Excellent, close. 44 as well. Here's our invoice right on top. 76. She's going to come down here and she's going to see what's happening. Now, if she views it, she can also see that Adam's done the job, and we can see that we're waiting on Rachel. So Rachel is going to also approve this. And now we have an approved invoice, right? So in Kinetic, this invoice, and if I go back to the header, will move from the unapproved group to the approved group. And now you post and you pay following whatever your standard operating procedures are in Epicor. It has nothing to do with this precise AP automation tool. So really nice, right? It's a great tool for automating intake, automating tolerances and risk assessments, but your back-end posting and payments are just standard Epicor operating procedures, which is really nice. All right, so that is the example of a touchless invoice. And it's an example of an invoice that was out of tolerance and needs approval. We touched on a little bit if a item needs to be received, or if an invoice comes in and it needs to be received. And last but not least, we're going to go over to Amazon, if you remember that one. So let me reset this again. There we go. And sorry, I'm logged in as Rachel. That's why she has no visibility. So we'll go back to we're going to go to Jen, because I think Jen was the approver for that Amazon one. 22 items requiring her approval. Let's shrink that up. And there we go. There's our Cre8tive invoice from today's date for Amazon. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Same thing here. I'm going to scroll down. And if I want to pop around, same thing. Sorry, I'm zooming in too much. I can see invoice number. I can see invoice date. If I come down here, I can see those line details as well. Hey, where'd you get 11 from? Where'd you get the quantity from? Where'd you get the part number from? And it's going to show me all those details. So now there's view related, there's nothing related. There is no PO, there's no receipt. All right. Now, if there are notes, we can add notes. If there were notes, they would come through as well. But in this case, I can just simply approve this invoice. And now that I did that, I can see that, hey, I've approved it as Jen, but we're still waiting on Adam. So in this case, this is another approval what if statement that I've created. So number one, I said Jen needs to be the approver. Why is Jen the approver? Jen is the approver because the vendor is related to Amazon. So all we did is we just created a what if statement, said, hey, if we're ordering from non-PO vendors like Amazon or McMaster-Carr or Grainger or Uline, then we want that invoice to also go to a specific person. So in this case, it is vendor code specific. We can also use vendor groups. And as I mentioned, another common is part classes or part class groups. But in this case, as you can see, it's vendor. Now, why is Adam the approver? In this case, Adam is the approver because the GL that we've used for this invoice has been assigned to Adam, right? So same thing. We're going to go over here and we're going to log in as Adam. Same thing here. Adam has 43 items to approve. There's our Cre8tive invoice right on top for Amazon. He's going to click on that. Actually, let me take you back because this is kind of a nice tool to chat about. As you see here on these dashboards, I'll shrink this to make it a little more consumable. Maybe I'll give you a zoom as well. As you can see, really nice detail. When was the invoice created? What was the stated invoice date? What is the due date? Who are the active approvers? So this is a nice tool for your AP clerks that are, again, unfortunately we get harassed by, the people trying to collect from our suppliers. And we can see, oh my gosh, I can see I'm waiting on Adam. I can see I'm waiting on Rachel and Adam. If I come down here, I can see other, and of course we're logged in as Adam, so this is mostly going to be just for Adam. But I can also see who is the entry person, who is the clerk. In this case, as we know, it was Maurice. Maurice was the person who dragged and dropped it there. What's the batch number, right? Which is usually correlated per day. So again, just really nice visibility for your AP team to use these filters and say, show me all invoices that are overdue, right? Maybe the due date is, or I think I clicked on the wrong one. Invoice to apply date, due date, there it is. Maybe show me a due date that's, less than June, right? Or greater, right? So a lot of really nice filters for your AP team to go and shuffle this data. Maybe they want to export it, or maybe you're using a BI tool, either way, but a lot of really nice filters there to help them track it. Now, in this case, again, we're going to go in. Adam's going to take a look at the invoice. I'm zoomed in a little bit too much. There it is. He's going to hover around. He can see what's going on, invoice number, terms code. Each item number seems to be correct. And he's going to, in this case, approve it. And now, again, we have an approved invoice sitting over in Kinetic with this attachment ready for posting and payment. All right. Well, that concludes our demonstration. Now, we set aside quite a bit of time, as you know, to walk through some specific questions, if there are any questions, or how would you handle this? In closing, Mary Chris, what I'll end with is the slide deck as far as kind of next steps or detailed information. So
Sure.
I'll make this a little bigger. But as you know, Mary Chris is going to be your main point of contact at Cre8tive and/or any other creative account manager that you're familiar with. And essentially my role in this is that I look after all of our North American users of the Precise AP automation module. I also look after the Epicor Advanced Requisitions users and Precise, or the Epicor Advanced Projects module as well. So a lot of different users and scenarios that we cover for these modules. So yeah, be sure to reach out to Mary Chris. And I think we had a bit of a QR code that will link you back to additional collateral, brochures, etc. Now, Mary Chris, in closing, I think you did say you were sending out a recording or a slide deck or something of that nature.
Absolutely. It could be on demand. Share it with your colleagues, anyone at your organization that's a stakeholder that might be interested. We'd love to hear from anyone.
Awesome.
But are you ready for your questions? We've got a handful.
Yeah,
I want to say we have at least 5 of them here. So
oh, really? Okay, excellent.
I'm just going to start with first come, first served. So the first question that came in was, will we be able to get a CPE certificate on this topic?
Oh my gosh, I'm struggling with that acronym. What is the acronym?
I'm going to guess certified professional. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, whoever chatted that.
So can somebody get certified on your product is probably another way of stating the question.
Yeah, let's have the person, whoever it was, a great question. Let's just have you define what that acronym is so that we're not making assumptions and answering questions that weren't asked. But yeah, we'll come back to that one, Mary Chris.
Okay. How does the OCR tool get trained for new suppliers or for misreads, for example?
Okay, that is a great one. So, okay, so what we'll do, and this is one that I can just show you. And this, again, this is a differentiation point. So great question. I normally talk about this, but I forgot. So what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll go to our pending invoices, which means they're problematic. Oops, sorry, I clicked reset rather than search. Pending. And they're problematic. So if I scroll down to here, I can see I have an invoice here, and what it's telling me, I'm going to give everyone a zoom here. It's saying, hey, there's a warning on this invoice. Our confidence is low that we got the right due date and the right invoice number from the PDF. As an AP clerk, can you confirm? We're only 24% sure that we captured it correctly. So what we do is here, we come in here, and now I got to zoom back out so you can see and you can see why it's problematic. Someone just took a receipt. And so the invoice number, it's telling us it got it from right there. If you can see on the right side, the very bottom of the receipt. And essentially, to take this full circle, imagine that this is an invoice and it's the first time we're processing it for the supplier. It's a new supplier, or maybe this is, it's just a receipt. It's a tough invoice to read. The way that you train it is right here. So what this will do is you'll say, no, it's not this number. It is this number, or maybe it's that number, or maybe here. And it will give you different options, other items that it sees. Hey, I'm not sure which number you want me to use. Now, just for the sake of example, let's use this 4024. That is the invoice number. Now, what will happen is, as an AP clerk, now I've told it that I'm confident that's the invoice number, and I submit it, and it will, if it's related to a PO, do the matching. And if it's not, in this case, it's obviously not, then it will just be submitted for approval. And what happens is the system will know that I manually changed it from this number to this number, to that number. And that once this invoice gets fully approved, then the AI OCR tool will have known that, it's approved, that correction is now remembered. So next time we process this invoice, it will grab this number from this location, whatever that number is, and it will use that for the invoice number. And the reason I harp on that is that there's a lot of other tools out there where, the OCR is a separate interface. It's a separate tool set. I got to go into a different tool and find this invoice and then do the training there. And that is not the experience here. The experience here is that the training is embedded into the screen. And what it assumes is that if you've made a manual change and it's fully approved, I will remember that for next time. So yeah, really good question there, Mary Chris.
Great. All right. The next question is, if someone involved in the approval discussion identifies that another person is required for their input, how would the AP team get that person included in the communication?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I was just checking my screen to see if there's if I can do it here. So this is perfect. This is a perfect example, right? So this weird invoice came in, the one that we're looking at. I can see someone just scanned a receipt, and now we're processing an invoice for it. And maybe as an AP clerk, yeah, it's a great point. I don't know what's going on here. I need to send it. So right here in this workflow button, from the draft invoices screen, I can manually send it for review. So I'm going to say, hey, and we can imagine that who was, I think it was Adam. Maybe not Adam. Maybe we'll go Frank. Maybe someone else, Maurice as well. Let's send it to Maurice. Please review. I don't know what this is for or why we're processing a receipt as an invoice. All right. So essentially what we can do is we can send a manual note, which will route it manually to whoever we select and provide a message. Now, most importantly, of course, in the system, in the AP, Precise AP automation tool, they'll see this, but they'll also get an email because, of course, no one's going to be living in this screen, especially from our operations manager. So they'll get an email that says the same thing. Hey, who are we logged in as? Oh, that was why Adam didn't show up. We're logged in as Adam. Adam just sent you a message. Here's the message. Here's a link to the invoice. Please review it. So long story short, this is at the very front end of the process. but this also applies anywhere through the approval process. So for example, if Adam or Jen would have been an approver as an automated approval routing, they could also intervene and say, hey, I actually need input from Frank Chang, even though Frank is not on the approval path, right? So really nice tool. It's the best of both worlds, which is, yes, we want the approval and the reminders automated, but sometimes I do need bidirectional information. I need Frank to tell me what this is about or whether I should reject this or not. So really cool tool.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, 3 more questions.
Okay.
Will this work if our Epicor Kinetic environment is still on-prem?
Yeah, great question. Assuming that you're on a supported version of Kinetic, yes. Yeah, absolutely. So the way this module works is it will always mirror your deployment model. So if you're Epicor Cloud, it's going to be cloud. If you're on-prem, it will be on-prem. The only truly, with you being on-prem, the only truly web service is the AI OCR tool, which is a web service. So essentially that will require web access. Other than that, yeah, the actual database is just deployed on-prem, or again, mirrors your Epicor environment.
Okay, thank you for that. What does the try the new Kinetic user interface switch at the top do? Is there a new design to match the Kinetic better or something?
Yes, yeah, that's a great question. I don't see it on this screen, so let me go to, and
Well,
maybe I'll pull
it
up.
came in a half hour ago, so.
Yeah, yeah. Let me try to find it. AP invoices. It could be that this user doesn't have permission. Yeah, it's probably easier for me to just show you. But yes, I'll give you the verbal answer, which is the reason it exists is that some people, there we go. Yeah, it was a permission thing. Okay, so this is kind of the traditional user interface of this module. Some folks say, well, I've used Kinetic for 10 years and I'm used to Kinetic. So essentially what this is it literally just changes the UI to look and feel like Kinetic. So for example, if I look at, this is a bad example, but we'll go requisitions. Then now I can filter these grid views. I can use the filters essentially similar to Kinetic. If I look at the menu structure, it's going to follow that Kinetic menu structure example. So yeah, essentially the only thing it doesn't functionally change anything. It's just the UI, the font, the format, and the filters are meant to better represent Kinetic. Yeah.
Good, good. Okay, final question. Okay, it's about advanced billing lines. Does this only work for receipt lines or also for advanced billing lines? Meaning that when the receipt occurs for an advanced bill line, will it apply the advanced bill amount correctly?
Yeah. Okay, good. Read that to me one more time.
Does this only work for receipt lines or also for advanced billing lines? Meaning that when the receipt occurs for an advanced bill line, will it apply the advanced bill amount correctly?
Yeah, great question. And I don't have that prepped up to show you on the fly, but yes, absolutely. All of the invoice line types that you can use in Kinetic, you can also do in this precise AP automation module. So yes, advanced payment is supported. The other super common one, of course, is debit memos / credit memos. There's DMRs. So you have unreceipted lines, which is a invoice line type. I'm scrambling. I'm trying to think of the other ones. Miscellaneous, of course, is a line type. Receipt is a line type. So in summary, if I've missed any, I apologize. Any line types that are in Kinetic, yes, you can do them in the Precise AP automation tool.
Oh,
That's an awesome question.
welcome news.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all the questions we have. I don't see any more popping in. Oh, hold on. Yes, I do. In addition to requiring approval for specific GL codes, can it send email notifications to non-approvers?
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely. So I think I think the underlying question there, Mary Chris, is we're asking John Doe to approve it, but we want Jane Doe to have the visibility. Is that essentially what that's asking?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So all we do is you embed them into the approval tree, but they're not required to approve it. So we call that either an auto approve. We also have another feature that's called a task, which is essentially just exactly for that. It's just like, hey, here's a notification, and then if you create a task, you can put in a message. We expect you to review this, or whatever the task note is. So there's a few different ways to handle that, but in simple, short answer, yeah, absolutely. You can send a notification to someone without them being required to approve it.
Okay. Where are the documents saved? Is there a separate database? Where are they being saved?
Yeah, okay, good question. So um, in the configuration of this module, there is just going to be a file storage structure or address. So, I mean, if you think C file, is a good example, or maybe use ECM, Epicor Enterprise Content Management. Maybe use SharePoint. Essentially, you will configure, you will decide where the files that you've dragged and dropped specifically into this tool are saved the exact same way that you would define where attachments in Kinetic are saved. So again, if in Kinetic you would, it's a link that links you in most cases to either ECM or SharePoint or a local storage drive. So long story short, the methodology is similar to Kinetic, where you just define where items are saved.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
Don't go anywhere. Looks like we're getting some more.
Sure.
Uh, ha oh boy. Okay, if we have the ECM AP automation add-on,
Yep.
you mentioned ECM. If we have the ECM AP automation add-on from Epicor, do we own this, or is this in addition to that? I think it
Yeah.
means is it separate from that?
Yeah. Great question. Yeah. So this is an alternative option to whatever other options that you might be using. So yeah. So to answer your question, no, you don't currently own this. This would just be an alternative option if there were issues with any other solution that you might be using, regardless of whatever that solution is. So yeah, it is alternative. Yeah.
Okay. Different supplier invoices have different date formats. How does the OCR know the difference?
Yeah, well, great question. I don't know if you noticed that the date formats were actually different in my system. So you'll notice that this one is month, day, year. And if I look at my other one, which was Bunzel, I believe we're gonna, oh gosh, a little bit too far of a zoom, but here's the invoice date here, which is day, month, year. So if you notice on the invoice, it says 2107, but it defaults to the US style, which is month, day, year. But on the invoice, it's day, month, year. So it's opposite. So long story short, yeah, it will just learn it. It will just know that that this invoice or this vendor sends it day, month, year, but it will transpose it into the precise AP automation module. However you do, and obviously if you're in your US, most folks will go month, year, month, day, year. So this is a perfect example. That's exactly what happened here. And again, yes, it's smart enough to map it correctly.
Okay. And how does the system handle past due requests, duplicate invoice attachments?
Past due requests. I might need someone to elaborate on that. Um,
Mm,
Is it, I'm assuming that it's just, an aging report and this invoice is overdue. Is that, I'm assuming the question. What was the second part of that question?
Uh, so the
Duplicate
whole thing is,
invoices?
how does the system handle past due requests, duplicate invoice attachments?
Oh, duplicate invoice attachments.
Yeah.
Um, so if that person's still on, yeah, if you might elaborate on that. Um, Because essentially what that can mean is that maybe your vendors send you 5 invoices as one PDF. But it could also mean that they send you an invoice with a copy of your own PO or your own sales order, right? So long story short, I'll either way I'll answer in both fashions. So if your suppliers do send you more than just the invoice, like for example, they send you a copy of the PO that you sent them, or they send you a copy of the sales order, or they send you a copy of the packing slip as a duplicate or whatever, right? The good news is it will learn that. It will know the difference between the invoice and additional pages. Now, is that best practice? No, it is not. Does it raise the percentage that the OCR tool is going to ask for help? Yes, it does. But in most cases, if it's a common supplier and you've processed 4 and 5 invoices with that pattern of additional pages, it will learn which is the invoice and which is not the invoice, and it will pull the data from the correct document and ignore the other documents that were attached. Again, I'm putting my consulting hat on. We don't like that because it raises the percentage of issues, but it also can work really well. So now the other part of that, the other side of that coin that I asked is, what happens if it's multiple invoices on a single document, which is essentially what a statement is? That is problematic, right? The system will assume that you're sending one invoice per document, right? So if you're sending multiple invoices, it's not going to know that it needs to go and create 5 separate invoices from one single PDF, for example. So in the real world, what we recommend people do there is that if that's common to get statements, then there's also really nice software out there, including like ChatGPT, where you can just upload that invoice and say, break this into 5 separate documents by invoice. So that is typically what we do. There's software out there, there's free software out there to break it up into separate documents. Obviously, you could just do a save as page 1, save as page 2, save as page 3 is another super common way to do it. But yes, the OCR tool doesn't like statements, so that's just an FYI.
Well, the asker elaborated and explained that the question is about if an invoice is uploaded twice. So I guess the vendor sent the same invoice again.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's even easier then. So good question. I'll try to find one. Go to pending and search. So what it will say will be an error. Maybe this will be one. There you go. There's the perfect example. So I'll give you everyone a zoom. I realize I'm zoomed way out. So this is the OCR exception dashboard. And that's exactly what this is saying. It's saying on hold duplicate detected existing document number 1769, duplicate invoice. So yes, what will happen if it detects an invoice is it will just flag it immediately, and it will put it in this OCR exception dashboard, right? So it won't go and create the invoice in Kinetic until someone's either corrected the invoice number or they deleted it out of this list, which you can do. That's how most people would manage that.
Perfect.
So awesome.
Perfect. For the general invoices without receipt lines in the system, how can the system classify the GL accounts for invoices?
Yeah, good question. So Amazon, if you remember, was not a PO. Well, maybe I know we're short on time. We have geo controls is the answer. So the geo controls that we can use are based on, and there's additional geo controls in this module, even outside of Kinetic, by the way. So specifically in the system, we can use a host of them. Hopefully I get them all. We can use, of course, company, site, a warehouse, if it goes down to that level, as geo controls. We can also put a geo control on the AP clerk because maybe certain AP clerks manage certain locations or certain spend categories. You can, of course, have it on the GL, and the 6th one, you have it on the part class. So even on a non-PO, invoice, you can still select part classes per line if you know them, or if that's the logic that you want to follow. So that's 6 geo controls I just mentioned. and then you have a priority. So imagine all 6 items are valid. It will look at the priority that you set for those geo controls and default it by segment based on priority that you've set as an organization. So there's 6 off the top of my head. If there's more, I'll let Mary Chris know and she'll let you know, but 6
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, so I know we're butting up against time, but there is one final question I want to try to get in, Daniel, and it's about licensing. Do all email recipients consume a license?
Great question. Yeah, this is a really big game changer. No, they do not. The only variable that matters is how many invoices do you want to process? That's it. Imagine you have 100 people in your business and you potentially they need to provide feedback. That does not drive the licensing in any way. So you can license every beating heart in your organization if you feel that will add value to your team. So the licensing is only based on your volume of requests, or sorry, on your volume of invoices.
Okay, so there's bands of invoice amounts.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, all right. Well, that's the final question, and we are after time, but there were a lot of really good questions there. So just want to thank you, Daniel, for your expertise and for the demo. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Watch your email in a couple days. I'll send you the link to the recording and the deck. And hope you have a great day.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.